2, 1. We are recording.
Hi everybody, we are here once again at Guru Talks podcast, where the world meets in Bali. And today is the 16th edition of Guru Talks, and we have a very special guest with us today, Rama. Hi Rama. Very glad to join us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Hi everybody.
Thank you for coming. It's a privilege to have you here, and
My pleasure.
I'm sure this is going to be an amazing podcast.
Yes, it's an amazing podcast because Rama is a multifaceted man. He's an horticulturist, he's a writer, and he's a dancer. And, of course, let me just present myself. My name is Ana Luisa, and I have this gorgeous man with me today.
Gorgeous woman. Don't kiss me now. People will say something.
You are looking very nice
Yeah,
today.
you know what? This is just the most amazing thing I have. It's quartzy stuff. Yeah? It's good.
Yes, you can.
And I think the same as you.
This is a beautiful dress.
And this is Anna Michelin stuff. You know?
Yeah. So you
I
can
love
buy
it.
these products also in our website, on our e-commerce page. This dress is there,
It's a
so
nice
check it out.
t-shirt,
So let's start our interview for today. So
Hi.
as I was explaining to our audience, so you are a multifaceted young man. You come from Java. So tell us how it was to grow up in Java, your upbringing. Bring us a little bit of knowledge so we know who you are.
Okay, hi everybody. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Rama. I was born and raised in the capital of Indonesia, Jakarta, another melting pot city like the other big city in the world. I considered myself a city boy, but I felt like never belonged there because most of my interests are not there. I mean, I have love and hate relationship with my city, but I always fascinated with living things. I started my career as a fish breeder, and then I was maybe 10 or 12 back then.
Okay.
And then I start to develop my interest with more floral. And in the same time, also my family background, it's pretty much coming from the royal court family of Central Java in Solo, in Surakarta. Even though both of my parents were already born and raised in Jakarta, but there was a bit of contrast because my parents, they are the modern couple, the modern version of Indonesian. So they're in the transition because my grandparents born and raised in their hometown, but then they migrate when, like after they're married, for example. And so I got a lot of different exposure from both family because both of my family also came from few different backgrounds. Let's say I got a bit of exposure from European culture, and then many of Javanese culture, a bit of Balinese, and
The exposure was through your family,
Family.
or because you traveled as well?
well, both.
You
Both.
didn't-
Let's say
you
both.
went out,
Yeah, I went out, but like my family also pretty much westernized, I would say, because my grandfather already went to the uni in Netherlands back in the 40s.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
So we expose a lot, we party a lot at home, as you can see.
You like the social thing.
The
yeah?
social. I never met my grandfather though. So my grandfather was a spiritual consultant for the president back then. My mom and dad got married in front of his dead body. Because in Javanese tradition, if the dad passed away, the children could not get married until 1,000 days after. And back then, my mom and dad already planned to get married like prior to 2 months.
And he died before.
And he died like just a couple of months before. And before I think from what I remember, he got Crohn's disease. So the surgery in Tokyo was not gone through. But before he went to the surgery, he wrote a note that whatever you start, just continue before I go.
So he made a will that.
Yeah, pretty much. And since I was born, everybody always thought that I'm the direct incarnation of my grandfather.
Wow.
He's a military guy, but also a musician and a dancer.
That's why.
So I always have a contrast.
Of course.
And I have my contrast as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now that you are a dancer and this is a very interesting start.
Just to start, we
This
make a
is
podcast
promising.
already.
Man, I'm already hooked to this conversation. Now I want to know you better, yeah? So if you may, and you spoke about traditional Javanese dance,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that you explore. And I remember being at Anna's Michelin opening,
Yeah.
and you did that amazing court dance, yeah,
Beautiful.
correct?
No, actually, it was a street dance that adapted into a court dance.
Okay.
So it was basically a street dance, but it was, let's say, how to say, dramatized and smoothened into like more court dance approach.
A blend.
Yeah, so
between-
it's not that vulgar anymore because the form of that gambyong dance was presented as what do you call it? Community dance, a street dance when the female seduce the man.
Okay.
But of course, in the royal court, the seductions refined into
Of
like
course.
something
Makes
like that.
sense.
Less
Yeah.
street, more court.
Yeah, exactly.
So, how this passion for dance developed, and how it started? So it was from whom? Somebody in your family? Something?
I mean, of course, from my family. My family have 3 big sets of gamelan in Jakarta, which quite rare for many families from Java to have gamelan because first of all it's expensive, and most of the time like they don't have the chance to learn and everything. But then I got a privilege coming from my family that we learn gamelan every week, and then the rhythm, the scale and everything it just like touched me since I was like maybe 5 or 6.
Wow, that's very
So ever
early.
since until now, my main playlists are just Javanese classical gamelan repertoire, like the old ones. And of course, to express my interest with the gamelan itself, the only way to express it is by dancing out of it,
course.
right? And the more I learn deeper, the more I realize that Javanese dance is not only about a performance but also a life philosophy, because every single movement always have meanings, and every single repertoire has its own history, because we're talking about a repertoire from 200-300 years ago. And like one of my favorite, for example, it's choreographed by my great grandfather. I'm like, let's say 7th or 8th descendant from him, started back in 1870s.
Wow, which it's interesting to understand, because for us as Europeans, it's always very interesting, and when we search, we're traveling, we search for, drink a little bit of these traditional
Yeah.
backgrounds, and it's amazing when we arrive in Indonesia and we have the opportunity to see this performance. Of course, they are performance adapt for the audience, for the tourists, and it's how, because now with COVID, and this is something on the back of my mind, this performance, of course, they were a little bit jeopardized because live performance are being compromised.
Exactly.
So how do you think is the future of these old traditions? Did you feel like they are going to be compromised in the future because we cannot see the live performance? How do you see this subject?
Okay, I'm gonna talk back a bit with about Javanese performing arts in general, because our great ancestor always said that I forgot the phrase, but basically he said, "Don't you ever admit being Javanese if you could not dance and play the music." Because
Wow,
it's
that's
basic
so-
of the
Impregnant
impregnant
on
on
I mean,
on
the
your
sense
system.
of awareness of being Javanese, you need to go through the art form. If
Yeah.
not, forget about it.
Yeah, because all of the value of the culture, the value of life, the value of the religion, basically spread out by the performance itself. I would start with the puppet show, wayang kulit, right? So this form has been around since Majapahit era, let's say 1500, and then of course, as the time goes by, it developed into something more entertained, and it was not only performed for the king or for the royal families, but also became a street performance. So in the 70s and the 60s, when radio came to Indonesia, a lot of people predict that wayang kulit gonna be extinct. because people now going to listen more the Western music and different entertainment from the radio. But no, the other way around. Now wayang kulit could be enjoyed through radio. Same with television.
Broadcast.
Broadcast. And even after in millennials, when YouTube, for example, came up, people also think that, oh, the kids would not watch wayang kulit anymore. But now all of the puppet master have their own channel, and that's pretty much like my weekend activity, watching wayang kulit for like 6-7 hours a night. And I don't have to like spend the 7 hours in one go, because I can pause, do something else, maybe party outside and go back.
Your own rhythm.
You think they are doing a good job? The ones
Oh,
who
great job, great job.
So it's serious work, yeah?
Yeah, because wayang kulit is not only about the show itself. There's a sculpture, there's art of the visual itself, of the, what do you call that? Of the hand making of the puppet itself, and then of course the story, the message where the puppet master wants to share. And even back in the New Order, wayang kulit was one of the tools to disseminate government new policies, for example.
So they use the puppet show to say we are in the law.
Yeah, pretty
Wow,
much. Pretty
that's
much.
smart.
A little bit of
But
propaganda.
fun, huh?
in my perspective, what I really like about wayang kulit is like the way how they compose the music.
Okay.
Because in Javanese gamelan, as well as Balinese, we do have two different big scales, Slendro and Pelok. Well, there's a lot of details, but let's say Pelok is more westernized, and then Slendro is more ancient. But both of the scale create another rhythm and give different ambience and different mood of the wayang kulit itself. And as the time goes by, when Kinarto Sabdo brought a new era of wayang kulit, still classical repertoire, but then he create totally big different ambience and different mood for the wayang kulit itself that could be enjoyable from different age range. And
This is what we can see nowadays.
yeah, I mean, of course, unfortunately, even for me, I only could understand maximum 70% because they're using very old Javanese language. But it's always fascinating the way how the puppet master, can you imagine, like one guy controlled 40, 50 crew performing once or twice in a week.
That's a lot.
And he have to maintain everybody to have their livelihood wealthy. Like 40, 50 people, like 7 to 12 female singers, 5 male singers, 20 to 30
So he's the one who sustains
male
everybody?
musicians, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So he's the patron of the team. That
Yeah. Well, I would say then wayang kulit became wayang orang, like the human puppet. And then the human puppet basically is the elaboration from the Javanese classical court that could be performed as Broadway. And then when I was in high school, I joined Patneswara under Retno Maruti, where she brought wayang kulit, well, mix of everything, wayang kulit, wayang orang, langendrian, which basically Javanese Broadway, because all of the dialogue in the performance are not with not a dialogue, it was with singing.
So you sing as you act.
Exactly, and we also have to understand the music, because if we cannot understand the instruments, the gamelan, there's no way for you to be able to act.
Act or sing in this case.
And bottom line, what you are saying is this is such an ancient art that been through so many challenges and different and time
still
frames, still exists. So this COVID thing will not affect, it will continue,
Yeah, it must die.
Art is bigger than all of this.
Exactly.
So before we go to the botanics thing, which is what I have here in my shirt, I would like to ask you a question that, I go out of the script. So prepare yourself. I remember being in south of India. They have an amazing show there in Kerala. And they do with faces and mimic. And when I see a lot of Indonesian kind of arts, the ones they paint themselves, there's a lot of mimic. You express to the face.
Yeah.
And originally that comes from China. Do you believe that you were influenced by the Chinese culture as they were trading here? I'm talking about thousands of years ago.
Oh yeah, I mean, of course, Javanese classical dance is not an original.
It's not close in
form.
there.
No.
It's a mix of.
It's a mix of
cultures
India,
that's
China, Arab. At least 3 cultures
they
that
are
we
mixed in
recognize
this,
around. Yeah.
and it becomes autonomous. It becomes their own culture.
Yeah, exactly. Because like most of the performance, for example, it's presented for the king. So in Japanese, we don't have that mimic, and we cannot even see the king. Like the way how we dance is like we're facing the floor.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
respect.
Yeah.
course.
So we express with our heart. We express with our finger. We express with our ankle. So that in
Dance,
Japanese
yeah.
dance, the core is the ankle.
And everything has a meaning.
Yeah. Exactly.
So where the botanic comes? So you are a dancer. I heard you can sing. I will go there. Yeah.
Later.
Yes. But well, the plant world comes and mixes with this amazing adventure of dance and art, because they seem separate, but you think they can somehow in your subconscious mind connect, you know,
Yeah.
as a
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. As a child, usually they always have something collectibles, like cars, Barbie doll, or whatever. And back in the days, my collectibles were orchids, or palms, or
Wow.
whatever.
why? There's a reason for that.
It's a living organism. It's something that I could see growing and changing,
a
and
true
then
saying, yeah.
and it's an art of knowledge, because the more I go deep down, the more I want to know more instead of like getting bored. Because if you collect like those collectibles, it's just gonna be depends on the person who created. But we are. I have an interest on the creation itself by whatever nature or universe we created. And even in my journey, like every time we explore, we always find like a new undescribed species, because that's how the nature works, right? So if the Hot Wheels, for example, invented by someone and they create a new design, then I'm just gonna wait until like something from the nature or universe create a new species, and then we work on it.
Wow.
But it's like a natural thing. You just watch and you observe. It's a lot of observation there.
Yeah, but then science also taught us how to develop by ourselves. So I make my own hybrid.
Okay.
I create different
So
things.
you play God a little bit. Yeah?
Pretty much. Pretty much.
And this also, it's related to my next
Yeah.
question. So this biodiversity in this amazing archipelago of
Yeah.
it's just mesmerizing. You have so many different species, and for sure you had to do a lot of investigation because you have
Exploration.
exploration. You have wrote 2 books,
Yeah.
and one of those books go deep into the
Sulawesi.
Sulawesi.
Yeah.
Explain us this process of investigation. How was your experience?
So there are a few different orchid books available these days, and most of those books are composed by or authorized by non-Indonesians. Until we start the first book, Native Orchids of Indonesia, in 2005. I was in a high school back then still.
Wow.
And yeah, I was in a high school. And then we just like, okay, I was the co-author, and then the author himself was the one who collected the pictures, and I'm the one who described it. And then after a while, we were thinking to do more specific with a specific area, because we got in contact more with many different botanists from all over the world, mainly based in Singapore, in Sabah, Sarawak, and of course in Kew Botanical Garden in England. And one of them actually suggests us, why don't you go to Sulawesi? Because there's an Orchids of Java, there's Orchids of Sumatra, there's series of Orchids of Borneo as above, but no one, or of course Papua, but no one ever touched Sulawesi. Because back then Sulawesi had a bit of conflict, if you remember, in Poso, around like maybe 10, 20 years, where this social conflict or religion conflict conserve and preserve the orchids by itself. So for those 2 or 3 decades, there's no botanist or scientist there to come to that area and collect the specimen.
So it's a virgin kind of.
Pretty much. Like I remember we
Wow.
found like at least maybe 3 or 4 long lost species that haven't been found in this in the cultivation for more than 100 years. So it was, I think it's Physostenocentrone. It was described in 1911 by Schachler, and then we rediscovered in 2011. So exactly 100 years. And Sulawesi itself, it's also an island where there are two different, what do you call it? Specific flora and fauna. So half of the island is Malaysian, used to be part of Borneo, Java, Sumatra, and some other part, in the east part, it used to be part of Papua and Australia.
Okay.
So they create a specific endemic species, both flora and fauna. And of course, especially with orchids that only evolved less than 10,000 years ago, then it just create totally different group of sections and genus. And I remember there was like one case when we found this one new described species, not by us, just a few years before, but we found out that that orchid exclusively only growing on pine trees. And the pine only introduced in that island in 1972. So the evolutions,
It was quick.
it was
They
pretty
adapt very
quick.
quick, yeah.
And it was also pretty much a missing link of that group, because there's a lot of that section group in Philippines, only 2 or 3 in Borneo, 2 in Sumatra, and another dozens in mainland Southeast Asia. Never found any in Sulawesi, but the one that we found in Sulawesi was exclusively growing on the pine trees that just recently being introduced.
So we can say that orchids are beautiful but fierce. They grow, they adapt, which is
Yeah. It's always a peak of the succession. So if a jungle have no orchids, means that the successions and the ecosystem is just not stable yet. So there's a pioneer species and there's a peak species. The pioneer species like the lichens or like the legumes, the one that grow in the first year, and then usually orchids gonna grow in the ecosystem 50 years after.
I remember reading this book, New Earth, from Eckhart Tolle. Maybe you read it.
Yeah.
He had The Power of Now, and then I read Understanding the Power of Now. I was a little bit tired of too much Power of Now, but New Earth was so beautiful. And he says the crystallization of the geologic world, which is the stones and everything, is a diamond, yeah. And the plants are the flowers. So the flowers are the last evolution of Botanical. Yeah? It's in the end of.
Yeah.
And then he says that we presume that man would be the crystallization of animals, but it's not true. It's the bird.
Yeah.
Because it can go out.
Yeah.
He has out
They
of
can
gravity.
migrate.
Yes.
Yeah. And orchids is like the latest plant family that evolved.
It's the latest.
wow.
One of the youngest.
So I've been in
family.
Singapore in the biggest orchid farm. You know, you have all the orchids in the
Yeah.
world. And I remember just staying there and reading a book. This is a marvelous plant, but I still don't understand the deepness. And I think you are going there through the movie night tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
From
I have
some
another-
other side.
I have another question for you. So now you are in Java. You have all this amazing life, dancing and botanic, and your family and amazing social life. Why you decide to come Bali? What's in Bali that you love even more, if I may ask?
I want to have a child.
Wow.
That's actually the main reason why I decided to move to Bali, because we never feel like raising a child in Jakarta would be an option.
Okay.
So that's basically my idea. It was quite funny because in the beginning I kept saying to myself before I decided to move to Bali, I don't want to live in this island because
Why?
where I'm working, my friends gonna come here, my family gonna come here, and then force me to go out with them. Well, let's have brunch or lunch here and there. Oh, what do you think I'm doing here? I'm working.
So here you could be in privacy, yeah?
Yeah. But then life find the way how
Yes.
it works. Then I mean, what I'm doing, it's pretty chill. I can easily jump out. But again, at the end of the day, it's just impossible.
But you like it here.
No, I love it here.
It's a cozy life, yeah?
The Bali is an amazing place
Yeah,
for everybody.
yeah.
So, and I need to consult because these terms, germ plasma, conservation. Okay, so these terms are quite new. for me, and I think for
Germplasm
some
makes
of
sense.
our audience. And then some level of attraction in these terms.
Yeah.
Can you explain what they exactly
Yeah.
mean?
So to make it complete, it was plant physiology, germplasm conservation, and genetic improvement. It's like in one go.
Okay.
So plant physiology is like the way how you understand plant, how they metabolism.
Like humans.
Like how we secrete, how we decrete, how we digest, how we metabolism in general. So that's plant physiology. Germplasm is like the variety of one species. Like for example, we have a lot of different type of mango, but they're still coming from one species. Or cruciferous vegetables like the brassica, cauliflower, broccoli, kailan, kohlrabi, cabbage. They're basically also one species, but they evolve into different manners. And to continue that level, then we do genetic improvement by combine one to another of this variety in one species to become something more
Perfect.
let's say desirable for human. So at the end of the day, I have to also still work with human, because in the beginning, the reason why I wanted to be a botanist because I don't want to work with human.
Yeah.
But it
It's more
just ended up I
simple
had
with
to
plants,
work with human, and I'm a pretty much social person. So it's okay. It's fine. And
But you love human beings anyway.
Yeah, of course.
But it's better to work with plants, yeah?
They don't complain that much, huh?
No, they do.
They do.
They do.
They do.
So maybe
Is it
maybe
true?
we go.
Can I just
Yeah,
ask
yeah.
one thing? My mother was a very simple woman. She already
Yeah.
passed away. She spoke with the plants.
Yeah.
And I think
My mother used to do
there
that
was
as
some
well.
reaction. I could see the plants felt
They
the
respond to the
vibration. What was like,
stimulation?
so they can listen to you.
Well, there are studies about that,
Yes.
which I'm not saying that I don't have any faith on it, but it's just like in my perspective, having a green thumb, for example, is basically having a good knowledge about the plant, because you just have to know like when they need to be watered,
Yes, and the sun and everything.
what's the microclimate perfect for them, how to make them
The
flower,
temperature.
the temperature, humidity, and everything.
That's the basic.
That's the basic, just very basic.
So
But-
it's not about the conversation with the plant that's making
No, it's about the knowledge. But I was thinking because you spoke about maybe they complain, and this is related to the question that you are going to do right after,
Yes.
which is the second part, because the name of our podcast
Yes.
is genetics,
I was going there.
Geodistribution,
And the dark side.
The dark side,
And
okay.
if I'm going out of the script again, this is what I do. So prepare yourself. This can be edited if
Yeah.
you don't like it.
We can always have 2 hours podcast, right?
Anyway, I could notice that you have beautiful nails in metal there. You know that actually if you scratch very slowly, you produce oxytocin in the body.
Yeah.
So, what is the dark side of the plant? It's a way of connecting. What is the dark side of plants? Because the dark side means they are in the dark, or there is a dark side.
Well, actually, the reason why I put that up, because we're going to watch adaptation after this, and adaptation is pretty much a good representation of the dark side in the plant business, plant world. Because the way how I'm not going to tell the details now, but what happened with orchids, for example, because orchids considered as one of the most endangered species in the world because of the way how people trade them.
We are misusing them.
Yeah, well, we overexploited them. Same as much as we overexploitate elephant tusk, tiger skin,
Everything that looks
orangutan,
like
whatever.
exquisite.
Yes, exactly. But then in animals, of course, the law says that you cannot trade tiger skin through countries, because then you have to kill the tiger, and then if it's what do you call it, encouraged in that manners, then more of the killing would happen. But within plants, just because it's basically came from the same policy, like a dead orchid would value nothing.
Yeah, no value.
But in the international law, they're pretty much still considered the same. So, like for example, for 300 years, most of our botanical specimen herbarium kept in Netherlands or somewhere in England or somewhere in France in their herbarium. But there's no way for us to bring them back here, and knowing the fact that those herbarium these days, I heard they're going to just demolish them because they don't need the specimen anymore.
Okay.
Because nowadays people use a phylogenetic test to what do you call it? To describe a species, to distinguish from one to another. Back then, the only way to, I remember when I was in uni, if we got one specimen from the jungle, it took us like at least 3 or 4 days. With a lot of asthma and coughing, because imagine like hundreds of years of old specimen in herbarium, and you have to like check one by one in every drawer,
Wow.
like in an
Very
old
difficult,
building. And nowadays, you just
Easy.
Don't
like
need that. Boom.
just few click in Google,
That's
and then
all.
there's
It's there.
an app or whatever, and then it's there. And of course, nowadays with the database of phylogenic itself, then it's gonna be way easier. You only have to spend like I think in Indonesia like maybe around $70 per plant to get the DNA tests and to get to know the species. But of course, the lab also need to have a lot of database. But it's way easier as long as you have money, as long as you have the grant to do
The resources.
resources, then you can do it. Back in the days, it took you like days. Even sometimes, like if the herbarium in Bogor doesn't have the specimen, then you have to go to Purwodadi to get the other specimen to compare, and it takes weeks, sometimes years.
But as I traveled a lot before this COVID time, I remember some countries you cannot even go in with an apple or something. Everything that is out of the ecosystem
For the
of the country,
conservation of
like
the
Australia, you pay a fine of $200 if you bring some seed from outside.
The same in Indonesia, but as we know,
it's
it's
very
just
difficult
like
to control.
sometimes it's
That's
just
the
difficult to
dark
control.
side
Yeah.
also of it.
So
yeah?
the dark side is
Traffic.
the exploitation of the plant
Exploitation.
itself.
Yeah, I mean, I would say with the new technology of social media, now the smugglers have better tools to sell their well-collected orchids or whatever to internet, and there's no monitor.
Black market.
Yeah, I mean, it has been always a black market, but it's just so sad. And also in the other side, like for example, in 2017, we were in Aceh. We described 2 new orchid species that came from a very valuable genus, Paphiopedilum, the one that I've been working for the past 15 years, and described them as a new species. It's a big thing. So we were competing with some other botanists from Germany and from France. We won, thank God. But it's not about winning. It was
Of
more
course
like
not.
I was
It's the
trying.
pleasure of-
Documenting.
Yeah, I mean, I was more like want to accommodate some local Indonesian scientists and another botanist to work on it, and we can work on it together as long as we have the coordination, and then we have a good will and good deeds to do it right, because there's a grant for it. Like you just have to find it, right? But what I'm trying to say is, when we were there, their habitat is basically, it's not a protected land. So even the hunter who brought us there said that Rama, within maximum 5 years, this hill gonna turn into tobacco plantation.
And it's all the ecosystem is gone.
Well, 5 years from 2017 was last
It's
year.
already okay.
It's gone.
it's
Like
gone.
he actually texted me and sent me the pictures.
gone.
Like it's gone, and it's super endemic from that hill only. Can you imagine? Like after
So it's difficult to
200
find
years.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, now we have them in captivity. We propagate them
So
in
you can-
captivity,
Yes, yes, yes,
but
yes.
they're just
But
basically
if they are
extinct
not
in
in
the
the
wild.
natural
No,
environment.
they're just extinct in the wild, and it's also many cases. I mean,
It's
it's also a
very,
case
very,
for many different plants in the world
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
That's very
as a-
disturbing. That
Very, very.
Yeah, but again, this is the dark side. Like in the same
Yes.
time, Indonesia also needs to produce more whatever crops. We have a bit of pressure that every year single national park needs to extend around 2.5%. Means that most of the national park located in the volcano area, and volcano area is the most fertile area to grow crops, to have
Because
the
nobody
horticultural
goes there,
land.
yeah.
Yeah. So every year, 2.5% of those horticultural land also needs to be get rid of because of the expansion of the national park itself. So there's always
There's a balance.
Yes, there's always a way to.
I mean, there's not a balance.
if there's a will, that's the situation.
Yeah, so that's a bit of dark side.
Yeah, that's the dark side.
Yeah.
And while you were explaining about how it was difficult before to collect and to study the species, I was thinking, because when I look at you, you don't come across to me as a typical botanic expert. I have this vision in my mind of a person stuck in a greenhouse with a thick glasses, like looking to these books, and it's just like, you're nothing like that. But we have already in other podcasts people that reinventing groundbreaking fields, important fields like agriculture, and we are talking about botanics. So, are you the representation of a new generation coming that is imprinting, this youth, this new experience,
New ideas,
to groundbreaking fields that are
visions.
so important for
A friend
us?
of mine actually one time came to me and said, like, Rama, I think you should be a good representation of a sexy farmer.
I have no doubt.
Well, I mean, okay, let's put it this way. So my youngest brother is a pilot,
Okay.
right? So, and my second brother have his own business. And every time, okay, mom, if you listen to this, sorry, but I'm just gonna bring it up. And of course, when she met her friends, they would ask, like, how's Rama's doing? How's his brother? And blah blah. And of course, my mom would start with my youngest brother. Oh, my youngest son now is a pilot. Sexy job. It's something that I can, present to my friend,
can relate
right?
normal
And then my
social, yeah.
second kid also have his own business, whatever.
Successful, yeah.
Rama, how to say?
He's a
What is
gardener.
Rama doing? So sometimes she called me like, Rama, what are you doing again? Just tell them I'm a farmer. Easy. No, you're not. You're definitely not a farmer. You're what? Horti something? Bota something? Yeah, botanist horticulturist, but make it simple. I'm a farmer. But yeah, it's just like
The pre,
That goes
the
to-
pre.
Too complicated,
in
yeah.
Indonesia,
Yeah.
being a farmer
beautiful.
and peasant are like not pretty much distinguished, right?
Doesn't give status, yeah.
Yeah, when you mention about farmer or petani, people
Okay.
would imagine like someone,
With a-
like you say, like with a
Yeah.
cap and
Working
dark
in the
skin,
lab.
or as a botanist working in the lab with a very thick glasses. Now, I do have a big eye correction, -7.
Okay, so I nailed that one.
But I'm a pretty much a nerd. But just coming from the other age that I want to also represent myself that I could be something different. And
you
it's
are.
not like me trying hard to
Yeah,
be
it's just
that.
you.
It's just being me.
Yeah.
Because I like for being what I am. I like to put makeup on my face because it's pretty much like a drawing. I like to put good outfit because I want to feel good to myself. And again, when I put every single dots all together, means that okay, maybe I could be a good picture and representation
As a farmer.
as a farmer or as a scientist. Like
Yes, of course.
why a scientist could not party hard until
Oh,
4 a.m. in the morning and
course.
dancing and working as a zombie farmer in the morning.
Oh, you didn't met my virologist friend. He's very crazy.
Yeah, there you
he's
go.
an amazing scientist, and he has wildlife, and he's a normal guy.
There you go.
Completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going deeper in the conversation and understanding that your passion, you are a farmer, okay, Mr. Farmer. Let's
Plant
go there.
scientist, farmer, whatever.
Mr. Sexy Farmer. So what was your groundbreakthrough discovery in botany? Did you add something that you discovered that is completely unique? Did
Well,
you,
you just mentioned
I mean,
before.
Well, actually, I just mentioned it.
Yeah.
Like one of the biggest achievements
Let's
I
go
had
there.
in my life was the one in Aceh. The
that's-
story was quite something because I was seeing this Italian guy. If you're gonna listen to me now, not seeing, but we're like somehow
Speaking.
speak online,
Connecting.
right? And then we found out that we have common interest with this particular genus, Paphiopedilum. We never met. I cannot remember how we got in touch. I think it was through one of the social media platform, but it was not from Orchid. It's from something else, from the other side. And he was the one who sent me the picture. There's a bit of sight of this new species in your country. Maybe you should check it out. And then just within a few days, I got a grant immediately. Okay, let's just go there before the other scientists from different country came in and described it. So it was pretty much like one of my biggest achievements. And also, of course, I made up a lot of different hybrids and trying to not lead, but let's say direct a lot of other breeder fellow in Indonesia. Why don't we also works with different genus, like what the late Milo also did, instead of working with the common hybrids.
So Milo is the man who did
No,
no, not Milo.
no.
Yeah, Milo, the
Oh,
designer.
Designer.
Yeah,
He
Milo,
was
the
also
designer.
a botanist.
Yeah, well, he was more a designer,
Oh, I don't
and then
know
he
that.
actually also orchid breeder, and that's actually how we met in the 90s.
Oh, this is going to be added.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Beautiful.
that's how we met in the 90s, but I got closer to him after I moved to Bali.
Okay.
But we've been always in contact. We've been always a
Because
jury
you
for
share
Orchid.
this also the
yeah,
same,
same
same
passion.
passion.
yeah, yeah, and then we became a family.
Yes,
family.
Yes. Yes, and I would like just to ask you one thing regarding this question. I study natural medicine now for 19 years. I gave a stop the last 2 years. Like I still practice, but I was massively studying. You know, like you know what the nerd thing. I would spend all my money in books and study. I never read a romance or a book that is not related with my work.
Yeah.
I don't see TV, I don't see newspapers, it's just and for 18 years it was my life. Do you have that kick in that moment that suddenly makes light in your brain and you, wow, now I understand this. Like you have this kick when you are discovering something that you are working so deep and there is this discovery that gives you some flair.
The moment of
The moment of
clarity.
discovering, you know? When
yeah,
you connect the dots, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a plant that you
Yeah.
didn't know you have there. And
Yeah.
You study in the lab. You study the plants in the
No,
lab.
I studied more on the field. Well,
So
I mean,
you
like, of
see how
course,
they
I
survive.
took the specimens into the lab. But like, for example, in my thesis, I remember I bought this book. I bought this book in Cambridge about planet evolution and planet evolution and succession. I cannot remember the title, but I have to check later. So it says that orchids or epiphyte taking a big part of the primary forest secondary succession means that of course after like 50 years or a couple of hundred years, some old tree is gonna die, right?
Okay.
And if there's no new seedlings in between, then the species might be extinct
Yes.
because in the tropical forest, the canopy is very uptight and dark.
Thick. Yeah.
It's very thick, yeah. So the orchids and other epiphytic, and of course, like 80% of the world epiphytic are orchids. So the orchids itself help the secondary successions by weighing the twigs. So after a few years, because the orchids grow faster than the trees, they got too heavy, and then just open the canopy and give the sun penetration to the forest floor and let the seedlings of the bigger trees
Come
to
out
start
again.
growing. Yeah.
So it's all this ecosystem completely
Yeah, but it took us.
connected,
Yeah, it took me like almost.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. I was
Now, the
almost
moment you
not
read-
graduating from my bachelor because it was pretty much doctoral research.
Oh, yeah, you are already far ahead. in
Yeah.
the research. But when you discover it, it's like that was a
It's
kick,
the
yeah, like-
interconnection.
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the,
Well,
of the
okay.
biodiversity.
Now I can because my bachelor was in forestry,
Okay.
in a silviculture, so I took ecology, and I was trying so hard how to incorporate orchids with my research, and that's the only way I could do. And it's very interesting because it was only theory. There was never a statistics or never any
The practice.
practice proven on that theory, and then bingo
Plain.
dingo.
And we are talking about endangered species. We talked about it.
Yeah.
Okay, Rama. Are humans an endangered species? And do you think that we are that important for the preservation of biodiversity?
That's a great question. Maybe
You
I'm
want to
not
have
so
a
good.
humble opinion?
I want
Yes.
to have your opinion.
Your
A humble
Or not.
opinion?
From a very
Whatever you
sexy
feel
farmer.
like. What do you think about it?
I always think that human is an alien in this planet.
It looks
So-
like, yeah, the
It
way
looks
it
like.
treats
I
it,
always
yeah.
think that way, and some other species as well. I don't know because I'm not into that genetical fauna. But even in flora, there's always an anomaly of a species or anomaly in the family that we like. There's no chromosomes that even similar with a species. It's just totally an alien, and we cannot really find the dots of the ancestors of each species from one to another, even the phylogenetic test. So I do believe also in human being, even though some of the evolution theory says that we are
The
part of,
Darwin, yeah, yeah.
but I always think that we are just an alien, and of course, as many as alien as an exotic species, whether you survive to make it settled and stable or just vanish.
So
I
we
think-
just take to
It
completely
will
over
vanish,
the
yeah.
planet.
We will vanish sooner or later. It's just
I mean,
we can't do it by ourselves or
I'm
just
not,
naturally.
I'm not historian, but we learn a lot about our ancient histories and like what for example, my grandfather not rebuilt, how to call it, renovate the oldest two temples in central Java, and those two temples basically came way before Hindu ever came to this.
So there was already
Yeah, even
lot
the
of
carbon,
knowledge.
even the carbon says that it was pretty much the same when the ancient, or what do you call it, purba, the pre-human ever exists. The same period. So we never know like what was the socialist society back
Yes,
then.
before.
But it was already like a lot of knowledge from those two temples.
So the extinction of the humans is nothing that bothers you. for
And
now,
we are
yeah.
not so important to preserve the biodiversity. Maybe if you get extinct will be a good way for to continue the
Well, I mean,
preservation.
I always think the human itself, it's a virus for this planet.
Oh well, the Matrix
Sorry.
movie says that.
Yeah.
You are a virus.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, of course, there's no pure saint, there's no pure evil. Some human would just do some right things,
Yes,
and some others
of
don't.
course.
Well, my teacher says that we are intrinsically good, but we don't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until
We just-
I mean,
until we realize
again,
Until
there.
proved wrong.
Yeah.
And so I got to this question, which is the next question, and I realized through your conversation, through the conversations of orchids, orchids are not just a beautiful flower; they have some deepness, like you.
Yeah.
You are amazing flower with deepness, yeah. You are exotic, and there is a lot of deepness. And I heard that your deepness also manifests through your voice. So I need to tell that I heard
Here we go.
I heard somebody in a beautiful ceremony that happened during a friend of yours who also loved Botanical.
Orchids.
And everybody was completely astonished and touched because you sung a cappella, means there was no instruments behind.
Yeah.
So a part of the dance, a part of the plants, that is the voice. Could you speak a little bit about that, if you may?
Okay. Well, there's a lot of things in my head now, but I'm just gonna use this, do this first. I'll send you the translation later, so you can show it. It was composed recently. It's an old format, but it was composed by my teacher in 2001 or 2002, so it was like 20 years ago. And I think it's pretty much related what we have now with the world that's sick and needs to be healed, right? Sinamoreng tias karuna kunganganti sing yang maha suci amung patu kosatuhu kang wenang amisesa mareng sakung mobah mosing tu mati Mugi paring aksama luwaring pacoban jati. Thank you.
Thank you, man. I was not expecting this.
Wow.
Whoa, that's Thank you, Rita.
Well, thank you for these lovely moments.
Fuck,
My God.
that was brilliant.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know.
Any more questions?
Ah. Last question.
Okay.
So, Rama, as we now experience, you are a multi-layered man, and maybe, if we believe it, this can also come from your zodiac sign. So we are Gemini now.
Yeah.
I'm also Gemini. We never stop.
Yeah.
We are just looking.
My daughter also, my baby mama also Gemini.
Oh,
so we're all a
God,
Gemini
it's
family.
Beautiful. It's a brand new family, and it's a sign that is renowned for this creativity, for this willing or never stopping and searching different ground fields
Yeah.
and just exploring them. What's next?
What's next?
Yeah. If you are creative, it's coming something
What
more.
is coming there?
It always came spontaneously.
Naturally.
Yeah. So if people ask like what next,
I don't know.
well, I think in my livelihood habit, it always like circling the same. Palms, arrowheads, back to orchids. Vegetables, fruits, herbs, back to vegetables.
Which is already a lot.
Yeah. Javanese dance,
Singing.
human puppet,
Yes.
shadow puppet, back to court dance.
Okay.
But always in that area. Well, maybe sometimes I would, combine some of them, but I would say I'm more the activist. I don't really do the choreography, but I really want to encourage the choreographer and the botanist, people who really works on that field. Not saying that I don't work on that field, but I feel like there are more people who have a better capacity than I do, but most of them just don't know how to do it properly. So maybe in the coming years, I would think to settle, I don't know, a social enterprise or a company to support and accommodate these people, especially from the botanical point of
That's
view.
would be great. If
Yeah.
you do that,
That's an
because you have
amazing
the
idea.
Yeah, I've been doing that for a while, but not in whatever platform. So I think what I've been also thinking, also maybe to make a seeds company or whatever social enterprise that could contribute a lot with my own sector in the society. Yeah.
I think it's,
So now, what are we going to do, Madame?
well, now we are going to prepare ourselves for the movie night that we are going to have with Rama. We're going to see adaptation, from Spike Lee.
That's a Gemini guy because you wake up in the morning with a guy and then in the night you have another one.
Yeah, we go.
Like I understand what you say. And in this movie it's the
different
same.
moods.
Yeah,
It's-
pretty much.
It's the
Yeah.
same guy with two.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage
Personalities.
go both sides. So
I saw the
think
movie a long time ago.
Yeah.
it's an amazing movie. It's time
And-
to wrap it up.
Yeah, I will wrap it up and to finish. Thank you so much for your
Thank you,
singing.
Rama. It was
My
beautiful.
It was
pleasure.
beautiful. Inder was the one who gave it. He said, please ask him to sing because then you will understand where he goes.
Beautiful moment.
Thank you, Indra. And thank you, everybody. Anita, thank you for coming. Simonette, I love you. Indra, who is there? Yeah. And Soma and Anna.
Thank you so
Thank you
much,
for coming.
everybody.